Hey guys, welcome to my Commanders versus Packers prediction. This video is coming out later than I anticipated, late on, Wednesday night, but we're here. I'm going to predict, I'm going to give my honest thoughts, try to be as impartial as I can be, as a Packers fan. But without further ado, let's get into it. Going over, just some commonalities. Packers are favored by 3.5 points. The over under, they say under 48.5. I do kind of agree with this. I think the Commanders aren't really built to put up a ton of points, if I'm being honest with you. I think that they are a team that they can put up a good amount of points, but but in terms of like, who they have at wide receiver, not knocking it at all. I think Debo Samuel played fine on Sunday against the Giants, but Scary Terry, maybe it's a little bit of rustiness, maybe it's a little bit of a slow start because he held out, obviously. But you know, I I don't like the depth of Washington. I guess when you know that those are the two guys you're probably gonna have to account for. Obviously, Noah Brown I like, but still need to see more. Type of thing. And then it's like Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey haven't really gotten playing time. The running backs, I think, will have a rough time. I think that obviously the Lions have better backs, and they were ultimately able to neutralize Gibbs and Montgomery for in Green Bay. When many people were like, "Are they going to be able to stop the run without um, Kenny Clark?" And Kobe Wooden stepped up really nicely. And then it's like, Austin Eckler's obviously a little bit older, a little bit more a bit more experience, obviously, which is why I think they're starting him over Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I like this kid, but we don't have enough on him, and we'll see, type of thing. Moving on to their defense, I think that the major issue that I have with it is that the Packers are going to be able to run up the middle. I think that Javon Kinlaw has always been a liability there, and Deron Payne, while he's a very good all around, guy, I just don't see him being able to like dominate type of thing. And this was the Achilles heel, in my opinion, on the defense for the Commanders, is that they didn't stop the run, at all really against Philadelphia. And I get it. Philadelphia has a crazy rushing attack better than the Packers, more than likely. But Josh Jacobs ran for 1,300, and a good amount of yards last year. And it's like I do believe they have a very good linebacker core. I think it's kind of weird that they have Von Miller still not on the edge technically, you know. But then Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, very solid type of thing. Trey Amos, I like rookie, obviously. Their safeties are two guys that I, I'm pretty sure didn't start for this team last year. Marshawn Lattimore to me is, a very good scrappy corner who has always got into it with like the Packers and played very well against us. And, but overall, I think their defense still lacks the true pass rush that they need. And, time will tell whether Aiden Hutchinson just isn't the same player, I guess. And that's why he struggled last week. But it's like, I still think they don't have anybody that's on the caliber of him. So I think that Love is going to be able to kind of sit back and potentially pick apart this defense, and that sort of thing. And they're going to be able to have a good rushing attack that is at least respectable. Moving on to the Packers, the only player that is out that, played last week, is Brendan Cox Jr. They do say Parsons still kind of has an injury. I think it is a smokescreen, and if anyone saw how he plays, even if he only plays at that level and he plays the number of snaps he played, on Sunday, I think he's, going to be a difference maker when he's in the game. Edgerrin Cooper balled out and, was around the ball constantly. And I think it's going to be one of those things that you're not going to be able to, Jaden Daniels is going to have a hard time running with the football with, Quay is fast, Edgerrin Cooper is fast. Obviously, Parsons and Gary, are above average fast. And, I think that this, they've just kind of proven that, last year they were very good against rushing QBs, not letting them rush a lot. and it's a second year in the system type of thing, and it'll be real. I think that it's going to be hard on Jaden Daniels, if I'm being honest with you. You know, and I'm not too worried, I guess, about the corners. If I'm being honest with you, even though they're going up against Scary Terry and Debo Samuel, type of thing, and overall on offense, I think Josh Jacobs can have a really good game. You know, all the wide receivers, besides obviously Watson, are healthy type of thing. I think Kraft had an unbelievable catch, but they also got it to Luke. Luke Musgrave played, and then John Fitzpatrick also played, who had a catch type of thing. But this team did very well even when Zach Tom went out. And, they had Darian Kennard come in. They also had Jordan Morgan play as well, type of thing. And don't get me wrong, the run game wasn't like crazy good in week 1. I think, the Lions kind of were prepared for that at least to a good extent. But, looking at this, I'm just wondering how they're going to force pressure and be able to cover the number of guys they're going to need to cover in this game, type of thing. And, I would look forward, honestly, to, Matthew Golden maybe squaring up against Marshawn Lattimore as like because he didn't do, a lot in the receiving game on Sunday, dealt with a small injury, but now they're saying no injury, and I think that overall, he's going to be just waiting to have a breakout game type of thing and prove he's the number one guy potentially. But overall, my score prediction for this game is I'm going to pick Green Bay 27, and I'm going to say Commanders 20. I think that they're going to get after Daniels a lot. It's going to be a struggle for him, and they're going to have a very similar outcome type of thing. Because I think he did struggle week 1, but I also think that, my opinion with second year quarterbacks is that they're going to struggle a bit more than their first season because they have teams have a full season of tape on them. And I think Halfley does a very good job, even making Jared Goff comfortable, who many people say is like a top 5 and at least top 10 QB who just didn't do well, last week. And, I said years experience in the league, whereas Jaden Daniels, I don't think, you know, is quite going to be ready. And as well as, it being at Lambeau, being a primetime game, I think that, it's been the loudest I've heard it at Lambeau on Sunday than ever. And obviously that was kind of, I wouldn't say a revenge game, but a divisional game that the Packers were like, we need to make a statement win, and that sort of thing. And if they win this game here and, take care of the Commanders, then everyone's going to have the Packers on their radar, but that is my prediction. And I want to thank you guys all for watching. And if you have any other opinions type of thing, feel free to leave them in the comments or subscribe if you want regular NFL content where, I'm looking at these games, and we'll have our weekly predictions out Friday, for you guys that want to know what my next video is going to be. But I want to thank you all for watching, and as always, go Pack Go.